Coming up next on The Voice of Alabama Politics, abstinence only. Also, a new prison oversight bill. And ALGOP sends out a letter explaining the ballot challenges.
Why, a 4-year-old child could understand this report. Run out and find me a 4-year-old child. I can't make head or tail out of it.
I can't make heads or tails of it either. And that's the truth. All this and much, much more coming up next on The V. Welcome to The Voice of Alabama Politics, where we tackle the tough issues so you have the hard facts. I'm your host, Bill Britt, and as always, I'm joined by Susan Britt, research guru extraordinaire, and Josh Moon, the man of the hour.
Report. Sorry, you went light on me there. I was like, what, the check didn't clear? What's going on here?
Yeah, man of the hour and investigative reporter and columnist at APR. I know that the check is in the mail, and I'm sure the funds will clear.
Man, mercy.
Yeah,
I know we've had some problems with the mail lately, but mercy.
Yeah, I'm telling you. Well, there's a lot of snow. It would not be session without them dealing with some aspect of sex, because as I've said before on this show, our legislatures just seem obsessed with sex. Now, Josh and I can tell some stories, but we won't about some of our lawmakers.
I can tell you a few myself. Yeah.
But they have passed a bill out of the Senate that will make sex education even more restrictive. We already teach abstinence only as the only real method of that children or young adults should use. And listen, you're talking about 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18-year-old people. And the more you tell them not to have sex, the more likely they're going to have sex. It's like I told my grandma one time, I said, "Grandma, how come all the things you think are sin, I think are fun?" And she had no answer for that. But Susan, young men and young women to not be taught about the basics of sex and how to remain healthy and how to not get pregnant and how to respect each other. I mean, these are things that should be taught at home, but they also should be taught at school, because not everyone gets correct information at home.
Well, how do we know they're being taught at home? Yes, most responsible parents will do that, but there's a lot of parents that just, basically put their children in the high chair and let them deal with themselves. This is yet another ridiculous bill. I mean, it's a comprehensive ban on sex education in schools, even though peer-related studies have shown that sex education not only prolongs the time that they consider having sex, but also it reduces the pregnancy rate, of course, because it teaches contraception. Alabama is and has been one of the highest teen pregnancy rates in all of the United States. Why do we think that telling children to not have sex is working? It hadn't worked so far. How is a comprehensive ban going to help that? And with your stance on abortion in this state, where does that leave young people?
Josh, keeping people ignorant, it seems to be a moral philosophy sometimes among our lawmakers. And maybe that's because they are willfully ignorant, but who knows?
Well, as the president said, he does love the uneducated. And so I think that plays right into the MAGA movement, is to be as uneducated as possible, or to live in this Pollyannish fantasy land where you can keep your children young forever and protect them from anything that you deem uncomfortable or risque or anything else. In the meantime, they're learning all sorts of stuff at school. And I mean, the idea that, I mean, have you ever tried to tell a teenager not to do something? I mean,
Right,
you know,
right.
in the various like mentoring things that I've done and dealt with teenagers and just, families, kids in the family and stuff. Whatever you tell them that they're not supposed to do, that's what they want to do most of all. I mean, it doesn't matter what it is. If you told them, if we could start young and tell them, I do not want you mowing the grass, they would do nothing but mow grass all through their teen years, okay? And so it's complete lunacy, and not only is it affecting our teen pregnancy rate, and it is. We have one of the highest teen pregnancy rates in the nation, and consistently have for the last 30 years. It also is affecting the STD rates in this state, in which we also have some of the highest teen STD rates in the nation, because among this, while we're also teaching abstinence only, this bill strictly prohibits the teaching of how to use contraceptives. Strictly prohibits telling kids how to use contraceptives. What are we doing? I mean, I wish that more people knew how to use contraceptives, because then we wouldn't have some of these morons who are in our legislature. Because if this had been practiced way back. And so, I understand their stance, I guess, on it now. They wouldn't be here if idiots couldn't do this. But, this is where we are as a society. I mean, this is science. It's nature. It's, you're going to have an uncomfortable conversation with your kid. I'm going to have it. That's just how life works. I mean, stop this.
But some of these parents do not know themselves that much about it.
That's how they got in the position in the first place of being a parent.
Remember, now I was fortunate enough to escape public education in a state where they don't believe in public education, but we were taught about reproduction, how it happens, what the boy has, what the girl has, how you do all those things, and how you should protect yourself.
I honest to God, I was too in the 90s. We learned these stuff in the 90s.
Yes.
I mean, in late 80s, early 90s, it seemed like sex ed was a thing that they had kind of encouraged. I mean, you go back to the 80s and the early 90s, and that was a whole different world around the country, and I don't know where, like the church started interjecting itself into a lot of the causes, and especially our education system. But I'm assuming that's what happened. But we had real sex ed at that point. I remember very vividly sitting in a public school classroom and learning about contraception and about reproductive issues. It's just, I don't know what happened to our people. What happened?
What? And now I know one of the arguments for the bill is like, well, they can get all this information online now. One, that kind of information is restricted, and two, how do we know where they're getting the correct information?
Yeah. I mean,
Even
you
if
know
they
what else
are
they
able
get
to find
online? Where you go online and Google, Google sex or something and see what comes up. You're not going to get the best
right,
sources,
I'm sorry.
okay?
We have the porn laws in this state, right?
Well, we're trying to keep them
yeah.
from porn, and now we're trying to keep them from sex, and like back to my
I don't think
grandma.
you're accomplishing what you hope to accomplish through any of that. I mean, it's just stop it.
I'm going right back to what Grandma didn't say. Yeah, doing the bad stuff is a lot of fun when you're a kid.
Yeah.
But we're going to have to leave it right there. You're watching the V, the voice of Alabama politics. We'll be right back. Hey.
Your home is your most valuable asset. But what if someone tried to steal it from you? Property fraud is one of the fastest growing areas of fraud in the country today.
As a district attorney, I've seen firsthand the devastating effects of property fraud. That's why I'm proud to support the Montgomery County Probate Court's REACT program.
REACT is designed to protect your property and to give you peace of mind. By signing up, you'll receive an email notification if a document is filed against your property.
This program is a game changer. It has the potential to prevent fraud and protect countless homeowners throughout Montgomery County.
So don't wait. Sign up for REACT today and protect your home.
Protect your home with REACT. Sign up today.
Alabama has a hands-free driving law, and that means you can't hold your mobile phone while making a call. Oh, and no writing messages, recording, or watching videos either. Plus, you can only use a single button or swipe of a finger to answer a call. So what's a driver to do? Alabama's hands-free driving law is in effect. Follow it.
Welcome back to the V, the voice of Alabama politics. There is a prison oversight bill that I think really addresses some serious problems in our state. Now, Josh, you have reported on it, and you yourself think it's a very good bill. Mm-hmm. And I think smart people, serious people have looked at it. And I don't want to make too big a point of this, but Dr. Larry Stutz, who we have often called Dr. Death, because look it up, he is behind this bill. Mm-hmm. Now, he's a sponsor of the bill, and that helps it get through the more conservative part of the Republican Party. But Dr. Stutz, or Senator Stutz, has also had a recent incident within his family where his brother-in-law has been incarcerated. So I think that may or may not have some interest in him having that bill. But he also, you discovered and reported, that he tried to get his wife appointed to the Bureau of Pardons and Paroles. But that's the bad side. Mm-hmm. Let's talk about the good stuff that is in the bill, and forget about that Larry Stutz is doing what Larry Stutz does, and that's serving himself for self-interest.
Yeah, no, you're right, and yeah, it was his sister, Larry Stutz's sister, that he was trying to get put on the board, but the wife of the person incarcerated. But so it is a good bill. All right, it is. It has the backing of Alabama Appleseed, and I mean, look, we all know the folks at Alabama Appleseed, and whatever you may quibble with anybody who goes down in lobbies at the State House, you certainly don't quibble with where the hearts and minds are of the people at Alabama Appleseed. They're looking for the best for people. They're just trying to serve humanity. Okay, that's all. They're looking for decency, and so they're behind this bill, are advocating for it. Have sent out information sheets on the bill. And look, what it does essentially is it places some oversight of our prisons into independent agencies. First of all, it creates a position there where a person who has quote unquote a golden key to go into any prison that they want to and inspect it, conduct an investigation, collect information, provide that public information out to people, and report out on what's taking place in those prisons and make sure that things are working the way that they should. They have access to they would have access to everything. In the meantime, too, they would also remove ADOC from investigating a lot of the things that happen in these prisons, and which we all know. We've all seen the reports where somebody fell off a bunk, quote unquote, and somehow or another ended up stabbed in the brain, and it was, multiple times, and it just, these reports that defy all logic and physics. And so we now would take that and we put that under the State Bureau of Investigations, and then the bill would also create a role for a new DA, an assistant DA, to be present in each county where there is a major ADOC facility to handle the prosecution of some of the violence that takes place in the prison. So we have somebody actively investigating it. We have a means to adjudicate it. Everything works and flows like it does in a normal working state. And I've heard from people that say, well, how are we going to pay for this? Well, I'll tell you how you're going to pay for it. Since 2020, we've paid $57 million in legal fees just to defend ADOC against some of the more serious lawsuits that have been filed against them over there. And that doesn't count what we spend every day on lawyers and attorneys, investigations, on the medical care for the people who are injured, through all of the other stuff that we pay for. I mean, we're talking about into the hundreds of millions. If we could go in, that's why I keep telling everybody, it costs less to have a good working prison system than it does to have this shitty one that we got right now.
Well, and the big thing on my mind is there is limited to no oversight right now
Yes.
that the public can see. And this is a fact. You go to Alabama prison for a minor crime, your life expectancy shortens considerably because we know so many people die in those prisons because of absolute lack of oversight and neglect.
We have toured, you and I have toured 3 Alabama prisons now, which is more than any other legislator, any legislator that I know of has ever toured to start with. And we've had reporters that covered prison crimes, internal, whether it was the CO or whether it was between prisoners and the violence and whatever. And it got so bad we had to stop covering it because they got so frustrated and they got so depressed that we had, we were on the verge of putting them in crisis of mental health issues because of how bad it actually is. And ADOC overseeing it is ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's absolutely, any help in the prison system is going to be good help.
Go ahead, Josh. We need to move on to the next.
I know. I just want to say one thing in defense of Larry Stutz, because I also went back and listened to a lot of the things that have been said in recent hearings and stuff. And this is how bad. We have 20,000 people in our prison system, okay? And they had a recent committee hearing, a prison oversight committee hearing, in which they talked about the folks who are hooked on drugs or have some addiction issue. And it was upwards of half of the people in prison have an addiction issue that they furthered in prison. And less than 300 were in addiction treatment programs.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
that's what we're talking about here, okay?
We know
got to do
that
this better.
We know that one of the best places to get drugs is in an Alabama prison.
Absolutely.
But I want to just briefly, there's a bill by Representative Chris England that the victims would be the first one to receive restitution for a crime, and it would not go to the courts first or all these filing fees and all this other junk. The victims would get paid first.
Yeah, and that's a good bill. At least I think so, because when we're talking about somebody that is in a situation where they've been injured or something has happened to them, usually they're going to the courts because they need financial relief, right? So, but trickling it out and making sure everybody else gets paid first is not very fair to the victim, who is probably sitting there with a desk full of medical bills. So I think this is a good idea to actually be able to get it to the victim first, and then let's do the rest.
And we're going to have to wrap this up. But the problem is, our courts in Alabama are funded by the fines and the fees that these people pay. It is not funded by taxpayer dollars in
It's not.
that sense. It is how much can they charge you and how much can they fine you. So they have an interest in them getting paid first and then the victim. But we got to leave it right there. You're watching the V, the voice of Alabama politics. We'll be right back.
There is a road laid out for me.
First night here, but Amy seems cool.
Leading down to the river. I am blind, but I need not see.
What do you think?
I know this road is there for me. If I'm really free, take me down to the river and walk.
Alabama has a hands-free driving law, and that means you can't hold your mobile phone while making a call. Oh, and no writing messages, recording, or watching videos either. Plus, you can only use a single button or swipe of a finger to answer a call. So what's a driver to do? Alabama's hands-free driving law is in effect. Follow it.
Welcome back to the V, the voice of Alabama politics. Well, I have felt a great sense of relief and calm after the Alabama Republican Party released a statement saying that all their handling of the ballot challenges that came up recently have been fair and by the rules. I mean, it was so inspiring that, Susan, one could get the vapors just from the sincerity dripping off the pages of that these things were fair and by the rules.
Or just the smell of the bullshit. Because that's exactly what it is. There's nothing fair about what they've been doing. I mean, I understand there are rules and whatever, and that's what their claim is, because these challengers violated their rules and whatever. Give me a break. You're picking a winner.
Yeah.
You're picking a winner because that's who you want in that seat. You don't want them challenged. You want to make sure that they're safe. Don't hand me, candy and don't hand me tell me it's candy.
Boy, y'all are getting a little flirty with your words here today. But as my old pap would say, don't pee on my boot and tell me that it's raining. But there you go. But Josh, you take the case of Doc Mancuso.
Yeah.
Now, Doc Mancuso had been a Republican for about 30 years now, right?
Longer than most of them.
Been around a while. Been a lot. I think longer than Steve Marshall. So.
Yeah. Steve Marshall was a Democrat until the day that Robert Bentley appointed him to be AG.
Right.
And I pointed out to Bentley, and he was like, well, we all used to be Democrats.
He would take it, He would take it.
And he's running against Ernie Yarborough, and Ernie's one of the favorites of the crazies over there. I mean, he just released a bill that said that they want to close primaries. Good luck with that. That's going to work out real well for you. But anyway, and then Jesse Battles. I got a lot of calls on Jesse over here.
Yeah.
But they pick and choose who they want, and it damn the rules. They make up the rules as they go.
Right. Well, everybody kind of focused on the top of the ballot, which we all know the problems up at the top with Tommy Tuberville, and but there were a lot of really egregious things that have really, really alienated a ton of grassroots Republicans at the bottom of that ticket. And Jesse Battles is one, and Doc Mancuso is another. It is. So, and I think that what you mentioned there in passing about closing the primaries. This is all part of a plan here, to kind of, they pick who is going to represent you instead of you being able to pick who represents
Exactly.
you. And that's a huge problem. And I think, I would encourage a lot of these folks to run independently. And it's tough to run independent. I know it is incredibly hard to run independent and win. Now it's happened. Yeah. It's happened some. Honestly, I think Doc Mancuso has a pretty good shot up against Ernie Yarborough. I think he is a very attractive candidate to a lot of people up there. He's a Trump guy in a Trump area. And, I think that's and I'll tell you this, I think Jesse Battles has could get some footing over against Andrew Jones over there as well because of the stuff that happened with the veterans thing. I think a lot of that still has left a bad taste in a lot of people's mouth, rightly or wrongly. So, but it's, people should be able to decide this. I mean, that whether you believe they're right or they're wrong, the number of people who agree with this or disagree with it should determine who represents them. That's just how this works.
Why don't we just save the state a whole bunch of money by just not having primaries? I mean, that would just fix it. That's what they're doing right now. They're not allowing the voters to vote for whomever they want to. They're picking the candidate. So why don't we just do that down the ballot? Saves the taxpayer a whole lot of money for having run the primaries.
Just tell them that the system's screwed, they're screwed, and that nobody's going to do anything about it?
Yeah. Because that's the honest truth.
I tell you what we could do. We could just let Trump pick them. We'll just let Trump pick who gets on the ballot.
Brilliant idea, Josh.
I mean, maybe he can come up with some other blue jean wearing guys to work out in the sauna that could be on the ballots for us.
And they drink their milk like a good boy.
That's right. Raw milk.
Raw milk.
I'm about to have an embolism. Well, there's been some little shakeup in the House of Representatives this past week. Scott Staghagen stepped down to run for party chair before he got ran out of town, tar and feathered. And so they've replaced him. They elected Paul Lee from Dothan, who's been around since about 2010 to head up the the majority leader in the caucus, and they made some other appointments. There's some chairs moving because of change in leadership. But there's also some chairs moving because betrayal within the caucus. And we have seen this all before. When you become the majority party for so long, you make your fellow Republican or your fellow Democrat the enemy, because you got to eat each other because there's nobody else to eat. So they cannibalize the party, and they're doing it with this ballot stuff. Now they're doing it with, how do I move up by destroying the next guy?
Yeah, and I know at least one person has found their new office addresses in basically the basement of the State House. And I'm understanding that's just one of a few that are going to be finding out the hard way what it's like to be a traitor or to, be underhanded in this business.
Well, there's one thing. We don't ask, we don't ask loyalty or this or that in politics because we know that's ridiculous. But Josh, when you try to go, and Nathaniel Ledbetter, I'm talking to an old-time politician the other day, and they said, Nathaniel Ledbetter has been the best Speaker of the House since Republican, since Reconstruction. Now, that's true. And I would say that the last decent Speaker of the House before Ledbetter was
Seth Hammond?
Seth
Hammond. Love Seth. But he was fair. Ledbetter's fair. Josh, you got the last 30 seconds.
Well, listen, I got to say, I am really enjoying the cannibalism. I hope that they keep it up. Keep it up, fellas. Y'all keep destroying that party. Keep rearranging those chairs on that Titanic that you're on. And you guys, listen, if I can give you out my phone number if y'all have any more recordings that you'd like to share of anybody. So specifically from caucus meetings, because that's working out great for you. So keep it up, guys. You're doing good.
Well, as Christy Nome, they've deported cannibals, right? She recently deported some cannibals.
That ate their own arms.
Yeah, ate their own arms and everything, which doesn't make any sense because how are you going to keep eating if you eat your arms first? But anyway, let's hope that I hope that the Republican Party doesn't cannibalize itself too much, but just enough to get rid of the crazies. You've been watching the voice of Alabama politics. You watch us because we watch them.